welcome everyone who's joining. We're going to get started in a few minutes. I'm just going to give a little more time for people to sign on. We'll just give people one more minute and then we'll get started. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to our webinar, The Future of the Automation Industry. Is it time to buy or sell? And I appreciate you taking time to join us today. And NuVescor is excited to bring this opportunity to you to have a panel event focused on automation. And the reason NuVescor is excited about that is we've been doing a lot of transactions in the automation space. And NuVescor is a boutique M&A firm that specializes in helping manufacturing business owners either sell or if they want to grow through acquisitions. But our focus is a manufacturing area. And over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, we've seen a significant change in manufacturing due to automation. So we're not only excited about the fact that automation industry as a whole has a lot of transactions going on, but the fact it's impacting the entire manufacturing industry. And today I'm joined, so my name is Randy Rua, and today I'm joined by Adam Crandall of Addtronics and Carolla of COMI Americas. And I'll give you a little bit about my background. I'll let them introduce themselves. But I started my career in engineering and right out of school. And before that, actually, I worked in my father's business. And he was really a pioneer in automation back in the 90s in electronics. So electronics manufacturing is going through a transformation of through-hole technology, which was a lot of people did a manual process, to surface mounting technology, where they actually used equipment to place the components on the circuit board. And so this was a major shift in the industry and for electronics manufacturing. And so his company would basically an integrator. He would go in and implement and build a whole factory and spec out all the equipment for the factory. And I helped him with that. And that's how I got my passion for engineering. But after a few years in engineering, I decided to switch to business. I got my MBA, and then my father and I bought 2 companies. We worked in those for a couple of years, and then he decided to retire, so we sold those. And ever since then, that was about 20 years ago, I've been doing mergers and acquisitions. And again, my focus is on manufacturing, but love technology, love how automation transforms industries. And I'll let Adam introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Crandall. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer with Addtronics. A little bit about Addtronics. Addtronics is a global robotics holding company focused in the custom automation space. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer overseeing applications, marketing, and sales at Addtronics. We've been around for about a year with a thesis and mission-driven focus on reshoring and revitalizing American manufacturing. We currently own 4 companies at the moment: Bow Robotics in Cincinnati, Ohio, that focuses on aftermarket services; Dynamic Design Solutions in Charlotte, North Carolina; and Missouri Tooling and Automation, which focus both on systems integration, and our most recent acquisition yesterday, actually, Serious Automation in Chicago, Illinois, that focuses on laboratory automation. So I'm very excited to be here today to talk about the automation space. I'm located in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I look forward to engaging with our audience. Thanks, Randy.
Thanks, Adam. And Corey, how about you give a little bit of your background?
All right, good morning, everyone. Happy to be a part of this amazing panel and give some insight to our participants. Like Randy said, my name is Corey Carolla. Currently with the group COMI Americas, which is also COMI Spa, an international company with our headquarters in Bergamo, Italy, and then our Americas division of our company is located in Novi, Michigan, servicing all of North, South America, and Canada. And our primary focus is to provide engineered solutions to customers in the space of manufacturing related to what it is, process improvement to equipment, and then integration and automation from a full turnkey perspective. My background, though, that brings me, I think, to this panel, and it allows me to sit here with Adam and Randy is experience from leaving the United States Air Force in 1998 and coming into manufacturing in several different capacities and working through from an owner operator to a executive level leadership to startups. And then being able to look at that from several different perspectives, from the business development, the economic development, and the workforce development from I would say regional, national, and international perspective. As you can see on my bio, I've been doing this for a while and take several different looks at it and have a unique approach towards what we would call economic vitality to the manufacturing space primarily, and then what automation looks like. It's not the generally just the Elon Musk version of, but what process improvement and what automation as a word looks like to the manufacturing process. And I'm excited to be a part of this and field some questions and give some experience and throw some things out there and see what's next.
All right, thanks, Corey. So just to go over our agenda for today, so we're going to start with talking about the market growth and trends in automation, and then we're going to discuss perspectives on buying and selling in both for manufacturing companies as well as automation companies. Talk a little bit about the sell side transitions that take place when someone's selling. And then we want to leave time at the end for our question and answer. And if you could actually you can submit your questions now, so you don't have to wait to the end. So as you think of questions, please don't hesitate to go ahead and submit those. Tyson will be taking those down, and then at the end during our Q&A session, he'll be able to read those out so we can answer them as a group. But yeah, appreciate you guys taking the time to join us, and please submit your questions so we can have some good discussions at the end. We're going to start off talking about what's happening currently in automation and some of the trends. And Adam, if you don't mind, maybe you could kind of share your thoughts on what you're seeing currently as far as what's happening right now, and then what has been kind of the growth rate and what you think the growth rate might be going forward.
Definitely. So, Randy, what I would say we're seeing right now and why Addtronics really came to be, why we developed our thesis of reshoring American manufacturing, is because we're seeing a major labor issue right now still. And I'm actually traveling in the state of Michigan as we speak today. I was in Illinois yesterday, both manufacturing hotbeds. And when you walk into these manufacturing plants, their biggest complaint is they cannot find people. We have a declining birth rate right now that we're continuing to experience. The younger generation does not want to go into these trades and blue collar type roles. So we continue to see the manufacturing industry grow rapidly because of these challenges. We continue to see inefficiencies, supply chain issues. There's another, big anxiety around, will there be another global pandemic? We're dealing with inflationary pressures right now. So in the industry today, we're seeing strong growth. With that being said, we are seeing some challenges when it comes to these inflationary issues, where high interest rates have led manufacturers to put a pause on the purchasing of capital equipment. We're seeing a ton of activity right now. So as you can see here, as we talk through this strategy, quoting activities, backlogs are still very, very high. When it comes to new projects and purchasing and acquisitions of new capital equipment in this space, we're seeing a little bit of a cooling or a little bit of a delay, I would say, in the 2023 fiscal year, but I would say not for long. And I would really urge manufacturers, if you are waiting, don't wait too long, because the labor pool is not getting any better. Addtronics, for example, we continue to acquire companies. We're not stopping, we're not delaying. People might ask, well, why is that? If the market is, starting to take a little bit of a hiccup this year, that's because we think that there's going to be a strong rebound for the next 5 years. From 2024 to 2030, I think you're going to see the market grow at double digits CAGR. I think you're going to see, again, continued problems with labor challenges. And as we look at this slide here today on our webinar, I think you will see the second bullet point change, where instead of current quoting activity and backlog are high, I think you're going to start to see current orders are going to be much higher in 2024. So I would say it's a very optimistic, bullish outlook for the industry, with a slight slowdown maybe in the 2023 fiscal year, but rebounding going into 2024.
Oh, Adam, I'm glad to hear that, because we monitor the financials of several automation companies and that are looking to go to market. A lot. We'll talk about this more later, but they've been pausing because they've had a big slowdown this year, and there's concerns. But they're saying the same thing, that the quoting activity and the backlog is really strong. They're just not seeing the orders coming in right now. So I'm seeing the same thing. Corey, how about from your perspective?
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with both of you. And one of the things that I guess the caution to the numbers is that the labor market and the cost of labor and the ability to create or to have the ability to service that rush when it comes is really investing in the challenge of the rising labor cost and the unavailability of workforce, and addressing that now. I mean, it's hard to say put money in the market when the market's down, or invest in your automation when you're not getting and seeing in orders. And I'm going to say the opposite and say, the time is now, because you can't just flip a switch when it hits, and you can't call, Adam and I and when it's rocking and rolling and say, oh, by the way, get me that automation today, because I still can't find those people, and we just got those 20 orders we were hoping for. And fortunately for the U.S. and the reshoring concept is that our labor market and cost are challenges that we have, and we used to lose out to the foreign markets, but we're starting to see even an evened up demand across the country, across the world, when it comes to that. Because I mean, the Chinese labor force is becoming aged, and it's becoming more demanding on what it costs to. And honestly, right now, the foreign markets are even a higher demand on automation. So don't wait to address the issues that could potentially put you in a better market and a better position to deliver for your customers. And we're seeing that across the board, where the companies that have kind of saved for the rainy day are saying, let's do this now, so it doesn't take us, we don't get caught with our pants down when the time comes again. We did during, we'll just throw it out there, the pandemic. All of a sudden you couldn't function because you didn't have people. Well, we got through that. We hopefully learned some lessons. We put some things into place when it comes to adding automation or process efficiencies. And now you see this kind of, the strike of a certain industry. It's like, oh, wait a minute, didn't we just tell you in 19 that you needed to make plans when people weren't available? God, here we are again. So that's kind of my take from the markets trending in an automation, is don't wait.
Yeah. And I think, well, so you're just kind of hit on that message. So why manufacturing builders should be ready now for a potential sale. Not a potential sale, but really What I mean by that in here is if you're positioning yourself for a sale, it typically means you're also operating better. So you're performing better. So, by implementing automation, we've seen this, the companies that we work with that have implemented some automation technology, they're much more profitable. They're much more attractive to the marketplace. They're performing much better than their peers who have not invested and have maintained older equipment. They're still getting the sales, but they're just not, their profitability is much lower, and their ability to grow is hindered too, because they are reliant more on people that they can't get. So we're definitely seeing it in our manufacturing clients. And so I think to make your business attractive, to purchasers, really that investment automation is going to be critical. Or we believe that the issue is going to be, it's going to be very hard to sell at all, or they're going to take a much lower value because someone has to invest in that eventually. Like you're saying, Corey, you can delay it, but eventually it's going to happen. So, but any comments on that? Corey, any other thoughts on?
Yeah, I think that some of the things that we look at the slide and it just jumps out at you that the value is in efficiency, and efficiency has a name. It's automation, and it doesn't mean six-axis robots all the time. It means thinking of things differently and eliminating wasted movements or wasted process actions. And really when it comes to quality and productivity and looking at technology like AI and what we have done in the industry to bring the cost of adding that to the process, so the investment has that return on investment that looks and feels, especially when you're talking in industries or you're talking in companies that don't traditionally think that they're doing it already. We talk about the tool and die industry transitioning into being an automation company. It's that companies like that just need to understand that the things that they've been doing for all of these years, when it comes to very complex tools in maybe a plastic injection tool, it's got sensors, it's got actions, it's got hydraulics, it's got automation built right into it, and then we're building specialty equipment that does value add to that. So identifying and then packaging that from a manufacturer's perspective and looking at what that looks like and taking advantage of what's available and what's out there and putting that all together in one is really what makes that the most attractive. And it boils down to doing it with less labor and doing it more efficiently.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Great. So one of the things I wanted to touch on is if you talk about manufacturing companies now, when buyers are looking at that, we mentioned before that companies that invest in automation are more profitable and more attractive. But one thing I wanted to mention also is that from our experience, buyers are looking heavily at the infrastructure that's in place, the technology that's in place. It used to be that buyers looked really carefully at the employees in manufacturing companies, but now it's more about I think their belief is employees come and go more than they used to. So like when I first got in this industry, I was selling manufacturing companies. This is probably 15 years ago. There was a heavy focus on making sure what's the longevity of your employees, how long they've been with you. Those are the kind of questions we got. Now it's really more about, what type of equipment do they have? How much automation do they have? What kind of technology do they have? How quickly can they bring a new person up to speed? Because they expect people to transition in and out of businesses now. So it's shifted from the value is in the people to the value is now and what your technology is as a manufacturing company. But Adam, do you have any other thoughts on that you could share?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Randy. Like we were talking about in the beginning, what we're seeing at Addtronics with our portfolio of companies is, again, all of these manufacturers can't find people. So it really kind of perplexes me as a manufacturing company why you wouldn't invest in automation when you continue to see this labor challenge. Because to your point, companies like us, companies that are looking to acquire manufacturing companies, the valuations are going to be based on not the reliance on people, but the scalability opportunity of that company, and really one of the major things that all engineers are trying to accomplish every day, is mitigating risk. And you really can't do that when people don't want to show up to work. I'll give you an example. I had a colleague of mine say yesterday, gave him a call, and one of his technicians packed his tools up on lunch, took his lunch break, and said, "Hey, I'm not coming back. I got another job," and got a job that same day. Why is that happening in this world? Because the trades, we're not investing in that in this country like we used to anymore. People don't want to go into those positions. So if manufacturers aren't looking at alternative ways and alternative technologies to say, okay, we need to put a system in place, not just rely on these 5 people that they're going to come back every single day when maybe down the street a new plant opens up and they're offering $5 an hour more. How are you going to sell your company on that kind of infrastructure when it's not really reliable? So manufacturers every day have to be looking at how can they build a scalable platform that's going to increase their valuation. How do you do that? You look at automation.
Good point. Now we talk about the buyer's perspective when looking at acquiring an automation company. It's interesting that there I do see a heavy emphasis on the people. So, I do see that buyers are really concerned about, who's on the team that's key, where's the key talent, how we make sure we keep that. So it's interesting that, the manufacturers are more focused on their technology and their equipment, but the automation companies need the talent to provide those services. So, Corey, do you have any, I guess you guys have been through some acquisitions at your company, right? So I'm curious how you guys look at risk and look at companies.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It's the paradigm shift is to what does the team look like at the levels in which they can perform. You absolutely can't say start from scratch at the rate in which the market is growing and say you're going to create an integration wing of your company or add additional integration space to your company. You have to go out and look and find that pre-existing 9 to 14 man shop or whatever that looks like based on your needs and what their principal scales look like, what their people, what they bring, how many control. I mean, I ought to tell you right now, if you find a company that you've identified and that you're working with, that's got a core group of key programmers, PLC programmers, and there's 5 or 6 of them on that the value of that group all of a sudden becomes greater than what hiring 5 of those individuals, because you're just, we could start today looking to build a team of 15 people, and I will guarantee you that we could also in parallel start looking to find a company that has 15 people existing and currently working in that field and in that space. And we're gonna win the race a lot quicker if we go find that company that has established themselves and has those key principles. And for us as a larger and Addtronics having similar type that platform, that portfolio, the value in that is that pre-existing group of individuals that has the mechanical engineers, design engineers, the program and the PLC type individuals that are ready to go. You grab that as a whole, it's a package that then, the challenge then becomes integrating the culture of them into something else and still being able to provide a service to a bigger audience. But you don't go hire, you don't say I'm going to set out and hire 14 people and have this thing up and running by the end of the next couple of months, because you're not, that is not going to happen right now.
Sure. So Adam, Addtronics does a lot of acquisitions. So maybe you could share a little bit about, when you're looking at companies, kind of how you look at them and some of the things that are important in your consideration.
Yeah, it's really an interesting perspective, Randy, when you look at Addtronics, because we're building something in the industry that's honestly never been done before. So a lot of companies are backed traditionally by large private equity firms, and a strategy that I call either a slash and burn or a rip and flip. They come in, they rip all the costs out, flip the company in 1 to 3 years. Addtronics is different. We're actually backed by what we call a family office. So multiple families that have a very altruistic mission. And if there's any, individuals on this webinar listening to this and they're like, you know what, it's been in my family, this business for 20, 30, 40 years. We're owned by families that love manufacturing, that want to reshore American manufacturing and bring it back. Their grandparents, aunts, uncles, they've been in manufacturing for, a century almost. And now they're backing Addtronics. And what we're doing differently is we're not looking at turnarounds. We're not looking at failing companies or, companies that aren't making money and they just want to flip them and getting out. We're looking at companies in this space, 3 really major areas. One is systems integrators, so companies that build automation, custom automation. Second division is going to be focused on aftermarket services, which is robot repair, spare parts, replacement. And then the third is our product specialties group that focuses on automation industry 4.0 technologies like AGVs or specific focused manufacturing equipment in the automation space. And these companies are privately held by families, potentially, a father, a son, a husband and wife, just like DDS, where I came from in Charlotte, North Carolina. And they can't seem to take that company to the next level, or they don't have deep enough pockets to gain that investment to really grow their business. So Addtronics comes in and says, hey, if you want to join us, we'll give you the investment. Oh, by the way, we have a playbook on sales, marketing, applications. We have a playbook on operations, on engineering. We have best class processes. We can get purchasing consortium discounts by pulling all of these things together and leveraging that. And when you look at that, I was mentioning to you earlier, Randy, it's like you look at a company that wants to sell and they're like, yeah, but the market's down right now. Do I really want to sell? It's a great time to do that, but it's a great time to do that with Addtronics because Addtronics will keep our owners on. They'll give them equity. We'll probably talk about this in a little bit, but it's a very unique outfit, I would say, where it's all about the people. We want to buy companies that have good people that want to stay on, be a part of the story, and not just flip the company and walk away. We want to also take care of the owner or owners that built up that company for two decades and then reinvest in their people and continue that legacy.
Yeah, actually, and that does lead it right into our next slide. And I was going to ask you about that. Like you mentioned, a lot of sellers that I'm talking to right now want to exit, but they're worried about their valuation. They're just, because of this year being down, they're like, they're worried about, am I going to get the money that it's worth? So you kind of mentioned, one of the options is retaining equity, but I believe there's other options as well that you might consider. But I'd like to hear, kind of, as you've looked at different businesses and talked to different owners that are looking to sell, what are some of the strategies, I guess, that they can look at to kind of overcome this issue of being down currently?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great point, Randy. So, a lot of these owners, when they're valued, they're looking at multiples of EBITDA, and they're really focused on what we refer to in the industry as LTM, your last 12-month performance. And it's been a rough year in 2023. So a lot of these owners are going, we've had a 30% downturn or a 50% downturn. I really don't want to exit right now. But I look at it as, number one, if you haven't done the things that you've needed to the past few years and you're in a pinch, what are you going to do in 2024 when this rebounds? And Corey's mentioned that, like, you're going to wait, and then you're going to be caught, with your pants down, quote unquote, and you're not going to be able to handle the incoming order book. So you don't have the resources right now. So I look at it as, talk to Addtronics, because we have the capital to help stabilize your business, get it back where it needs to. We can share resources across all these plants. So I think it's kind of a two-phase thing where these owners should look at it and say, okay, I got to prepare for next year. But the major difference of Addtronics is we keep our presidents and our founders on board. If they want to stay with the company, they get an employment agreement. And in addition to what they sell it for, which if it's, smaller multiples right now because the market's down, they actually have the ability to become an owner of Addtronics, not just their company anymore. And they get equity in the entire platform. So when Addtronics, currently having 4 companies right now, when we have 30 companies in the next 5 years, our platform is so valuable that now that owner that decided to exit their company that might be feeling a little down that they didn't get the highest EBITDA multiple, they're going to get grossed up, as we call it, where they have earnouts, they have equity, and they have equity in the bigger platform, which is exactly what Addtronics is. We are building a custom automation platform, a buy and build platform, we call it in this industry, for specialists, for owners that want to find a place to call their next home. And I think right now it's the perfect option, which is why we continued to make multiple acquisitions. We announced our fourth one yesterday. And some might say, well, how did you do that one? Down market. Again, we did it with this strategy where we have owners stay on, they participate in an earnout, and they get the opportunity to invest in Addtronics, which on our mission will be a very large company in the next 5 years. And you now have something, a small percentage of something that's about 10 times or 50 times larger than maybe what you currently owned your past 2 decades.
Great, thanks, Adam. And so Corey, your company may take a different approach with acquisitions. I'm not sure if you have any other thoughts you can add, or maybe ways that you can talk about ways that you guys have looked at acquisitions.
So it might be a different approach, but it's looking for the same results. It's looking for retaining the key personnel in the new, bigger atmosphere, the new, bigger thing. And what Adam said is spot on. Like it from the perspective of even the buyout, the earnout of what a lot of the acquisitions that happen in the next, over the last maybe 6 months and over the next 6 months moving forward, or the year, based on your past 12 months performance, is that the second half of the buyout for an owner is probably going to look better than the first half, because you just became part of something bigger. You just became part of something that had the ability. And what that gives you from our perspective is that you become a part of the team that then is, instead of trying to make your living on a $1 million project here, or a $500,000 project here, man, we got a big one at $1.5 million. Now I'm part of this organization that is literally focusing on and attacking a larger perspective, a real turnkey manufacturing, and then that hope and dream where you're like, I'll never be a part of a $30 million project. Well, yeah, you can, you will. Let's go. And what we need is the value of what the asset of that company brings to the table is existing leadership and principal in their current roles to be a part of something bigger. And that is really the key, is putting a package together that keeps the core competency of the human factor and the value of the current employees, from the leadership level, the owner existing down to the machine builder that has that reputation and has that ability to perform. And now you give them this larger platform to work in, and honestly, it's those projects are being there's only a small few groups that you hear every time that say, don't call those guys, it's too big for all 40 of you. Call those guys, it's too big. Well, that's changing because of the acquisition and the merger and the collaboration of individuals with a focused mindset that us together, the greater, all of us, all ships rise to the sea. And if everyone is pulling in the same direction towards the same thing, and honestly, it's you look at the market and you look at the people at the table, and you're like, well, is this going to get saturated? Is there going to be too many giants out there? No, there is not. I can assure you by the what's going on and by what the drive is to be successful in this business is the ability to move forward and take on some of these larger customers, these larger projects, and focus on what the value of the people that are being acquired into the larger prospect, and what that looks like today and tomorrow and moving forward. And Adam hit it right on the head when he said that, you know, you might not get what you want from your EBITDA multiplier today, but my God, when you're a small percentage of something 10 times larger, it's that smile's huge.
Definitely. And I think Randy, to add to that just briefly, you know, over 90% right now of business owners are, you know, really the baby boom population and Gen X right now. And if they're looking to exit here soon, we're in a turbulent time, right? You have high interest rates, high inflationary pressures. So they should be looking to partner with companies. Again, Addtronics is just an example that know how to do this, that know how to help support your exit. Because otherwise, what's your succession plan? You know, and I would say companies like NuVescor, like, are these companies talking and saying, what does our succession plan look like? What's our 3-year plan, our 5-year plan? And if they're not, I think you're at real risk. And one of the things I bring up, you know, in addition is we're following, at least in this manufacturing industry, this group called the ITR Economics Group, and they keep predicting in 2030 this huge Great Depression that's coming. And the big joke at these trade shows has been sell your business in 2029 and buy it from your kids at 10 cents on the dollar. But why wait until, you know, 2029 or 2030 to do that when you know, I know the time is right, but I just don't know the process. We should be having these conversations now. And I think companies and platforms like Addtronics now give sellers options that previously they might have not had before.
Right. Good point. So we're going to take a minute here to do a quick poll of the audience. We just have 2 questions. And so you should see that pop up on your screen here. And if you can quick answer that, that would be great. And also, I want to remind you again to submit your questions. You know, we're getting closer to the end of our presentation here, and we'll have some Q&A time. So, you know, don't forget to submit any questions that you have, anything that comes to mind. All right, so I think we're done with the first question here. So it's have one. This is the second question. It doesn't apply to everyone, but if you could answer that, if it applies to you, then we'll be able to continue on with our presentation. So thank you for taking some time to answer these. It looks like we have a good mix in our audience of people who are looking to acquire other companies, and also people who are looking at their exit. So you know, quite a few looking at their exit with time frames, majority of time frames in the next you know, 3 to 5 years, next 1 to 3 years. So we're looking to, it looks like some are currently looking to exit. But as we talk through this, you know, if at the end we'll have our contact information, so you know, feel free to you know, ask questions now in the chat, but also, you know, we'll be available to answer questions. As Adam said, you know, planning for the exit, it takes time. It has, you know, the heavy stuff it has to be well thought out. So we're glad you could join us today, and you know, feel free to utilize all of us, you know, to help you think through the best way to do an exit. All right, we'll continue on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the process of going through a sell side transition, looking to exiting the business. So we talked a lot about the kind of buyer's perspective, and then valuation and what's going on valuation. But one thing that we find with our clients is that they start off with valuation is the most important thing when we first meet them. That's top of their mind. That's their biggest concern. But I have to say that when it's all said and done, that is not the most important thing. And one of the things that we focus heavily on is calling our clients a year after they sold their business and ask them, if you went back, would you do it again? Or would you say, no, I wouldn't do it again? Or would you say you would? And the reason we ask that question is the Exit Planning Institute does a survey every year, and they survey business owners who've sold. And one of the questions they have is, do you regret selling your business? And 75% of business owners say, yes, I regret selling my business. So we're trying to fight against that. And the reasons aren't always value. Matter of fact, it's usually not about the value. It's about the fit with their team and the cultural fit with their employees and what happened to their company afterwards. And so we believe that, really, value is important. I'm not saying it's not, but the fit is more important. And also what we find is if you find the right fit, the value usually follows. They kind of go together. So our focus is on finding the right fit for a potential seller, a buyer who is going to culturally fit with their team, who's going to be able to take advantage of their skills and their abilities and really utilize that and help scale that out, like Corey and Adam have been talking about. Because if the team is given a bigger opportunity by being part of something larger, if the culturally they fit and they feel they can excel, that usually lends to a higher overall valuation at the end of the day, and also it leads to less regret on the seller because they feel good about the transaction that they did. So that's I just wanted to mention that it's not all about valuation, even though we've been talking a lot about that. The other thing that's you really need to look at is how do you prepare yourself to understand your options. And so one of the challenges that sellers have is that they get approached by buyers, which is great, but they don't really understand what are all their options. So take one of the things that we try and do, and even before we go to market, is really help sellers understand the variety of options they have. And as Adam said, there's companies like Addtronics that kind of have a new option that may not have existed before, of being part of something larger, or like Corey mentioned, kind of joining their company. So those are some options. You do have, individual buyers, but is that really going to work? Is it a fit? Maybe you're thinking your management team would take over, but does that make sense? I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. So what we want to do is help sellers think through all the different options available to them. We do market research where we go out into the market and we find potential buyers and what they're looking for, and understanding how they value companies, how they structure. And we want to be able to present that data to sellers even before they decide to go to market, to say, okay, here's some options out there if you do go to market. Here's some options internally with your team and what makes the most sense. And so what I wanted to do is basically talk a little bit with Corey and Adam on kind of the valuation, since valuation is something that's focused on heavily. I do want to talk a little bit about how they look at value and look at fit. Really should have said valuation and fit process. One of the things we already talked about is that in the manufacturing area, kind of a return on the assets and the technology is really looked at. But in the automation, it's kind of almost like a return on people. It's like, what can your team produce in the right environment with the right type of projects, with the right type of resources, and that's hard to measure that. It really is. And so, Adam, I guess when you're looking at a company, how do you evaluate the value and the fit? Like, is there a way you can tell whether this team really is going to be able to excel under Addtronics?
Yeah, it's a great point, Randy. So I think one of the secret sauce items that Addtronics has, again, that I think is just very different in how our approach goes to market, we have a very strong due diligence process. So normally, and again, no offense to the finance people, I love them. There's plenty of them out there, but to your point, they're just looking at valuation, or they're crunching the numbers. Oh, look at the EBITDA, look at the valuation, look at the multiples. We don't do that. We actually dispatch a team, and it's not a group of only dedicated professionals to M&A. It's people like me. It's colleagues in our applications group. It's operational people. And we pull people from all of the companies under the Addtronics family of companies, and we dispatch them on site to the new acquisition. We have them interact with the team, multiple meetings to see how the culture jives with each other. In addition to that, they're walking those manufacturing floors in custom automation to see, are those systems integrators building good equipment? They're poking holes, they're pressure testing. So I would say on our front end, we're incredibly strong when it comes to how we evaluate and really establish fit. After that, great example yesterday, we closed our 4th acquisition. We didn't just show up, okay, say, hey, you guys are owned by us now, boom, we're switching everything over. In Addtronics, the companies we acquire, their founders are still there. So we say, when the sun sets that night, when that deal is closed, and then the sun rises that next morning, the president and that senior leadership team is running that company the same way they ran it 2 decades before, but they get our way of doing business. They get our playbooks, they get our strategy. So we also don't force a cultural fit and say, okay, now that you're part of us, we're just going to jam you together with all of these other companies. We tell the companies that we acquire, okay, you've been running this for 20 years. You know this business better than us. We want to help integrate you into our way of doing business and leverage the best practices. But your culture is still your culture. It still remains the same. So I think when you kind of look at that approach, that really helps these companies establish if there's going to be a good fit. And I think Addtronics, to your point, Randy, yes, of course, EBITDA multiples are important. Valuation is important. Our investors want to make money. But the worst thing that can be done is solely looking at EBITDA multiples and valuation, taking that company on to join Addtronics, and then acquiring a group of leaders that are not collaborative or don't believe in the same vision and mission, which is investing in our people and reshoring American manufacturing. And I think we look at that very closely. When we're investing in these companies, we're investing in the owners that are going to stay with us, not just sell their company and parachute out. So I would say those are some of the things that we look at very heavily. And then to Corey's point, when it comes to resources like controls and mechanical, we do a due diligence with our engineering team and we vet the capabilities. We put their teams through assessments behind the scenes to see what their level of competency is. So we know what we're buying and we set the expectations up front of what we're looking for with each of these companies when it comes to EBITDA performance over the next 36 months and how they can add value to the Addtronics platform so there's no surprises.
Right. Thanks. Corey, for your company, do you guys have a certain valuation methodology or does it depend on the situation? Kind of how do you guys look at value?
It's very dependent on the situation, but I think, I mean, it all boils down to exactly what Adam said. It's an evaluation and a return on the value of the people. And how that complements, especially if it's a smaller group that's kind of becoming a part of a bigger group, where have they, where have they seen their shortcomings? Why haven't they been able to plunge through, hit a ceiling? What's kept them from going there? And how do we couple our existing platform to support that without essentially making that non-existent? So it comes down to exactly what Adam said, and what the value looks like is based on what the people bring to the table and what that leadership and then that principal core value of some of the individuals and then how that fits with how because it both ways. We're looking at bringing people to the larger team that then add value to the bigger team, but we're also, supporting the growth on both sides. So it really, it becomes a evaluation of how that mix, how those two worlds collide, and then they merge, and then what they look like beyond that, and then what that new value proposition looks like moving forward.
That's one of the challenges with a lot of sellers. And on my initial meeting with them will ask me, well, what's my company worth? And that's a very common question. And you guys kind of just described it, where you can almost say, of course, it's not a fun answer to hear, but it depends, right? Because it
Yeah.
really does depend on back to that fit, and what can the buyer, the acquirer, do with this company has a lot to do with the value to that particular buyer. And so I've seen huge ranges in valuation. You hear multiples all the time, but I've seen, automation companies that are, in the, say, $500,000 to $2 million EBITDA range go from anywhere from a 3 times all the way to a 7 times. That's
Right.
a huge range.
Mhm.
And so to say, oh, it's X times every time is just not realistic, because it's so dependent on who the acquirer is and how the business fits and what the opportunities are. So anyway, so thanks for sharing that, because I think that's a message that potential sellers need to hear, is that you really can go out and find, a magic multiple that you're going to be able to apply. CPAs a lot of times will do valuations for their client, and nothing against that. It's just, unfortunately, it's usually not very accurate to reality. And it can cause more harm than good sometimes, because it kind of gets a fixed number set in a seller's head, and then they get a whole different experience when they actually start talking to buyers.
Right.
Wanted to talk a little bit before we get to our Q&A here in a minute, about ensuring a successful transition. Both the buyer and the seller want to make sure that the sale is successful and it goes well, and there's some continuity with the employees. And here's something I want to bring up to you guys, because this is a big challenge I have, and I completely understand that sellers are nervous about telling their employees about a sale, and many of them want to wait until after the transaction is completed. Now, again, on the manufacturing side, where there's heavy automation, a lot of technology, a lot of investment, a lot of times that does work. They look at the employees as not as critical, maybe, and so they can wait. But on the automation, it seems like you're buying the people. So how can you assess that? So anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts on maybe how you've, Adam, maybe you can start with how you've handled that fear that sellers have, and and how important is it to you as a buyer to be able to work with some key employees before a close?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny you bring that up, Randy, because not only can I speak to it, I lived it. I went through it. So I joined a company called Dynamic Design Solutions. They were around for 23 years, husband and wife, privately owned, great company. They were the first company into the Addtronics platform. The sale was happening behind the scenes. I was their chief revenue officer, part of the C-suite. And the only person that knew about it was the husband and wife that owned the company and our president at the time. That even him got brought into the mix only about 30 days before the sale. They were very concerned. They didn't want to disrupt people. They were worried there would be a distraction. And I'll never forget it. I got pulled into a conference room, and it was like, hey, we thought it was a senior leadership team meeting, and all my KPIs ready to go. And my owner looks at us and says, this is not going to be a leadership meeting. We want to let you guys know we've agreed to sell the company. 30-second elevator pitch on why they did it. And the leadership team just sat there, and myself included, were like, silence. Like, you could hear a pin drop. And it's like, oh, and by the way, go get your suit jacket on. In 2 hours, you're going to go to downtown Charlotte and go meet your new owners. I look back at that, big mistake. No disrespect, but it was a big mistake. And now that I'm part of Addtronics, the Addtronics ownership, they didn't want to do it that way. That's why I think Addtronics is so different. They were pushing really hard. We want to meet these guys. We want to meet the senior level executives. We want to meet some of the middle level managers. But our owners didn't want to do that because they were worried about disruption, distraction. Now that I'm part of the corporate team at Addtronics, I have a chance to influence our M&A process. And our founders, Max and Griffin, are huge believers of inclusivity, bringing people in the fold, especially the ones that are the key players. Because if you don't, you pose a massive risk of having those people become flight risk and losing those people. And if you don't have those people that will be retained as part of that acquisition, what are you really buying then? Because in a custom automation company, the growth, the profitability, the scalability, and the return on investment that a PE firm or a family-backed office investment firm is buying is those people being able to perform and being able to be retained with the acquisition. So my argument would be, include the people. Don't be afraid about it. Sure, look at some of the risks. Make sure you can talk to people that have high level of confidentiality. But I think the risk really doesn't outweigh the reward. I think it's the other way around. If you don't include those people, you actually have a major risk of losing the talent and what you're actually buying. You're not buying a company, you're buying the people.
Right.
Yeah. And I imagine if the buyer can get contracts with some of these key people ahead of time, again, that's going to allow them to feel comfortable paying a higher valuation than if they weren't able to get those. I mean, I don't know.
No question. I mean, someone like me as the chief revenue officer, I owned a ton of relationships. And if I would have left on that day and just said, nope, I'm good. And, you know, all seriousness, I went home to my wife that night and I'm like, do I want to be a part of this? My owner didn't even tell me. I moved all the way from New York down to Charlotte. So I lived through it. So now, yesterday, we were at Serious Automation in Chicago. We started the process earlier. We had those people under the hood. So when we got there, it was more of a celebration versus, oh my gosh, what did our ownership just do?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think one thing to just a tiny add, it piggyback on what Adam had said is that if there is a member of the team that is probably not going to be an asset moving forward, they're going to not be an asset early, middle, or late, no matter what. That's not going to change. If they feel that there's some inclusion in the process early, you have some time for mediation of what that's going to look like and how that affects the ultimate overall direction of everyone else. And I agree 100%. It's that if there's somebody there that's just not going to be a part of it, they're not going to be a part of it at any point in the process.
Yes.
If there's somebody that's going to be a key asset through it, they're going to be a bigger key asset through it when they feel like they were included from the start. And I think that like Adam said, it's the ownership of relationships that becomes the key in the transition.
Good. Thanks, guys. All right. Well, we're get towards the end of our time here, so I wanted to leave a few minutes for question and answer. So, Tyson, if you have some questions that have come in, if you could go through those, we'll do our best to answer them.
Yep. Thanks, Randy. So we got a few in the hopper here. The first one is directed mostly towards Corey and Adam. The question is, are there any guarantees on the success of implementing automation that has been talked about by Adam and Corey? They seem pretty certain.
Yeah, I can. It's a great 100%. Yes. No.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right. Of course you want to say that. No, I would say the degree of my confidence, where it comes from. I've been in this industry now for over a decade. I've seen multiple challenges, issues. I've been through being acquired. Now I am the acquirer. So I've seen every different angle of it. What I would say is this: if you're serious in improving your business, you have buy-in, your people have buy-in of continuous improvement. Yep. Automation is a key high conviction level solution to improve your business. And if you're a manufacturer right now, I will flip it on the other end. I'm confident that if you don't do it or you don't do something with it, where will you be in 5 years when we are staring down a major economic challenge, or in 5 years, the in your hand cell phone born generation that literally is born with these things, and they don't want to work in these manufacturing facilities? What would you do as a manufacturer or as a systems integrator that can't find that talent? So sure, I'm confident. Is it a guarantee? No, but I can guarantee you, if you don't take any action in this industry, there will be a lot of pain on the other end. And if you partner with companies like Addtronics that have a team of people that know what they're doing in this industry, I would say your degree of success increases tenfold compared to just selling to a private equity-based firm that just looks at a spreadsheet on an Excel document and values your business without knowing when the deal is closed, how do you then make sure it's successful after?
Yeah, and I'll second the, if you don't do something, I can guarantee you with certainty that you will not be successful moving forward at the rate that you feel you want to be, and then you will eventually be non-existent. That's a guarantee. The automation, what that looks like, and the guarantee of the return on the investment of the specific automation, that becomes an evaluation of what makes sense. I talk about often when you add automation, it's most people understand of remodeling their home for sale. You want to focus on the bathroom and the kitchen, because that's going to get you the best return when you go to market. So automation is the bathroom and the kitchen of manufacturing. It's the revenue that holds the value. So I can guarantee you that if in your remodel of your manufacturing facility that's going to go to market, if you remodel the bathroom and the kitchen, you're going to see a better return.
Good,
Great.
thanks.
The next one here is, how does a platform company, I mean, Addtronics or COMI, for example, maintain company culture while retaining engineering talent and cohesion when purchasing a smaller company at a quick pace that is not in you guys' geography?
Great question. I can start off with that, being that I think that's maybe more directed directly to Addtronics. We've done it. We're doing it. So our facilities, Charlotte, North Carolina, vastly different from Lebanon, Missouri, vastly different from Cincinnati, Ohio, vastly different from Chicago, Illinois. How do you get all those people to want to work with each other, respect each other, like each other? So first and foremost, those companies' cultures stay the same. They still run autonomously. Their owners, every day when they come in, they still are now a president of Addtronics, and they drive that culture. So that's the first step. You're not just being absorbed into this corporate Addtronics culture. Each company has an autonomous culture. In addition to that, we have something where we call leadership councils. So all the presidents across Addtronics will meet monthly, share best practices, what's working well, what's not working well. We do almost like study abroad exchange programs, like in high school or college, right? We'll send and cross-pollinate employees from each company, and they'll spend stints on site, get to know each other, what they're doing, and they build that core relationship with each other. We have an all hands on deck meeting where all of our employees come out, whether they participate in a mixer or a culture event. So we do it really in a two-phase approach where we have the Addtronics corporate culture that everyone gets to participate and benefit. But really the big thing we see is companies that try to bring it all together in one, it doesn't work. When companies run separately, they keep their autonomous culture, and the president and the owner that has founded that company and their leadership team that has the trust of their employees, if they keep driving that, then you see success. And that's what Addtronics has really broke the mold in the industry, and we're doing it that way versus another major integrator that bought 50 companies, put them all together, and they had a lot of struggle and a lot of turnover.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. And we're doing it now. I mean, we're over several countries. We're international. We're several locations in countries. I mean, we've got four facilities in Italy. We've got facilities in Dubai and our America stuff. And it becomes a communication and transparency across the whole scope. But as Adam said, it's maintaining identity of the smaller units and letting them operate in the fashion in which that got them to where they're at, just supporting them to be able to go and be a part of something bigger.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, too, in addition to that, Corey, I don't know about you guys, but I know at Addtronics, you have a lot bigger of a budget to do HR-related activities and team building events when you're a part of a bigger conglomerate that has money to actually put into, baseball games or food trucks at a bigger scale. And you can do those things on a regular basis versus being maybe a mom and pop company that's only $1 to $2 million and, $100,000 to do culture events is 10% of your profit. You can't do that.
And when you talk about that, it becomes, from a professional development standpoint, a small 10-man shop that is mom and pie, and I'm no offense to any of the aging owners out there, but that's just maybe not what they've done. And then all of a sudden you have a group of engineers and controls folks that say, I want to be a part of this from a technical standpoint, but I also want to be a part of something bigger than myself. Yeah. And being able to offer that from that perspective is huge, because we all know, we call the cell phone world, that if you're not giving the gratification to what it is that's desired with being a part of something bigger than their self, and it doesn't have anything to do with who your customers are and who your market is, it becomes what you believe in as a company. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, and the younger generation that's coming in right now, they don't just ask for it, they demand it. I mean, I'll say, my marketing specialist called me this morning and wants us to put something in our handbook for volunteering days. Why? Because they want to have altruistic connection to what we're doing. So if you can't support that kind of stuff and foster it, again, business performance is key, but the younger generation that's coming in right now, younger engineers, younger business professionals, that's some of the stuff that they want to see. They want to be connected to a higher power, higher mission.
Yep.
Great. Do you guys know of any strategies that have been successful to keep non-leadership engineering staff post-purchase in this tight labor market?
That's a great question, Tyson. Yeah. One of the things that Addtronics does, here's an example. We give something called profit interest to our key employees and our top performers that we want to retain. What is that? It's equity in the company, and it vests over a period of years. So maybe the seller gets an earnout and they get equity, granted to them, or they can buy Class A shares, which Addtronics gives the opportunity at that C level to do so. But your directors of engineering, your supervisors, your managers, your senior engineers that are critical to the success and the growth of the company, we have a model called profit interest. In every business we acquire, the president of that company or that owner, which is now a president, gets about a few hundred profit interests, a chunk of those. And they, not me, not the CEO of Addtronics, they get to distribute those to their people that they see fit. And that makes them feel like they're part of the company. They have skin in the game. And when they put their feet down every morning in their bedroom and get out of bed, they look at it and go, I can impact the growth of this company and I have ownership in it and I'm going to benefit from that. So I see engineers that can be poached every day, a very tight market. That's a great way to retain them and have them come to work at your company every day.
I think one of our biggest things is looking at is professional development from a senior level or mid-level engineer or technical person. I mean, when you're working every day in a company that's, we keep saying 10 to even up to 50, and you're the senior engineer, you're the lead engineer, you're it, and you're on an island, and you'll become the end all say all of that particular world that you live in. And the cross pollination is something that we, it becomes then now all of a sudden I'm part of 200 engineers across the world that are focusing on different markets and different industries and different things going on. And they're a call away. They're a part of my team. I get into this into the situation where it used to just be me and I had to figure it out. And now all of a sudden I can make a call and I got 3 individuals on the phone and a part of a webinar meeting that gets this think tank that then gives this. And then, oh, by the way, all of a sudden you're part of something that has potentially a senior level engineering open in Dubai. You can't do that if the only world you ever lived in is this small little tank that says I can be the senior manager of engineering group in Southern Indiana. That the access to bigger, better things nationally, globally, becomes something that is very attractive for us to offer to individuals.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Corey. I mean, one way to retain talent, even outside the equity, is just the professional development tracks. I mean, even someone like myself, I was the VP CRO of call it a $5 to $10 million company when we got acquired. And that's a ceiling for me. There's really nowhere else to go. If our owner, didn't retire or sell the business, I couldn't get to a president or CEO level. Then Addtronics comes in and says, hey, do you want to be a CRO of 30 companies and taking your strategy and rolling it out worldwide? And maybe you get a chance to be a COO or an EVP one day. Now I have that opportunity. I don't have to go look for it somewhere else. Same thing with our engineers. You have to look at those engineers now and say, maybe you wouldn't have had a leadership track, but oh, by the way, there's 30 companies now at Addtronics. You could be a leader at anywhere in any part of the country at one of these businesses, and it opens up a lot more doors.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Now, I wanted to mention to our audience that obviously we're past time. So if you have to sign off, we're going to continue to answer your questions, though, because I do want to get your questions answered. And we are going to be emailing out a link to the webinar. So you can always go to the end of it and watch your questions get answered later if you do have to jump off because of time constraints. We'll also be sending you a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. I just wanted to mention that because I know some of you may have to go, but we're going to continue on just because we want to make sure we get through your questions.
Yep, thanks, Randy. We got two more, so it shouldn't be too much longer. The next one is from Robert, and it says, is the exit valuation higher or lower with an umbrella platform versus an integrated platform?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good question. Personally, just me giving my 50,000-foot view, I think if you have so two ways, an umbrella platform, I kind of look at it at Addtronics where you have all these companies under our umbrella. However, if they're not integrated, they're not on the same platform, purchasing agreements, CRM, if all these systems aren't talking to each other, making all of these companies under the umbrella ownership efficient and lean, your valuation is going to be significantly less because there's no secret. Addtronics, 5 to 7 years, we're going to exit. We're going to either get acquired by a bigger, investment firm. We're going to IPO potentially. How does our valuation increase? Step one right now, acquiring a bunch of companies, putting them under the Addtronics umbrella, letting them run autonomously with their cultures. However, if they're not talking to each other, if they're not in the same systems and they're not quote unquote integrating, one of the things we already did immediately at Addtronics, we have a centralized commercial team. What does that mean? Sales, marketing, and applications is at corporate, now company-wide. They're integrated with all of these companies. They're cross-selling. So step one is putting them under the umbrella and doing this buy and build strategy that we call it at Addtronics, where you're buying these companies and you're building them on and you're bolting them onto the platform. But after that, we have a great COO that's responsible for then integrating all of these companies together and making sure that the valuation benefits immensely from that.
Yeah, I can't, there's no add to that. I mean, that's spot on. It's a yes and. or let me give you the best answer to that question. It just depends.
Yeah.
But Adam hit it right on the head. I can't,
in
there's
general,
no add to that.
If you look at it, if the umbrella means that you're just under an umbrella and you're left alone, that would produce a lower value than having some integration. So,
correct.
But I think the way you do the integration is so key because, like we talked earlier, if it's not done correctly, it can cause consequences of losing employees and cultural issues. So you have to integrate, but you have to do it in the right way, and that's kind of the challenge.
Yeah, the yes and.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, last one here. I think it's a good one. What emerging technologies do you see particularly promising for manufacturing companies? And how can you guys assist potential sellers in navigating these advancements to stay competitive and future-proof their operations?
Ooh.
Was that a softball?
Come on. Well, I could take a stab at it first and then feel free to chime in. So I'd say number one, you should be joining webinars like this by NuVescor, of course, but going to trade shows, right? Like there's a lot of trade shows out there. You have ATX, you have the Advanced Manufacturing Expo, which I was just on a panel with a few colleagues talking about robotics and automation in the current manufacturing industry. So I'd highly encourage people to stay engaged in these relevant industry events to see what's happening with technology, because it's changing like crazy right now. We went from previous manufacturing technology to this industry 4.0, even industry 5.0 now that we're hearing about. And I think one of the biggest technologies I'm starting to see is this technology where you can monitor your equipment live. What's the OEE? Is it up? Is it down? What are the faults? What are the challenges? And is it running at an 85% world-class OEE rating that you were promised from that systems integrator? So that's a major one. A lot of AMR, AGV technology right now. We're seeing a lot of that happening. So things like that, I would say, are very key when you're observing this.
Yeah, absolutely. It in the technology, it's seeing the automation act and feel and perform more and more like what the operator was traditionally doing. This AI, this systems learning, and then the key, like Adam had said, is that once all of that integration is monitoring and essentially being able to integrate all of that together and understand what the actual production looks like from a just simply picking stuff up, working in collaboration with automation, automation and, you know, what that looks like, what that feels like. And machine learning, I would say, is one of the biggest things that we're seeing from a technology perspective. I guess it's one of the things, I guess, to answer, it's exciting for me that, and I looked this up, but think about the same company that made the Edison bulb glass in 1879 is producing 6 billion pieces of material that are on tablets and cell phones today. So it's watching, being a part of, adapting to, integrating, and then moving on. What's next? Webinars, trade shows, calling, getting involved. There is no one answer, I guess, is my one answer. It's a multi-pronged approach to be able to guarantee that you're going to be able to be successful moving forward. Ask questions, surround yourself with people, and listen, learn. You got my grandpa always used to say that you got kind of 2 of these and 2 of these and 1 of this for a reason. Use them in that ratio.
Right. Great. Well, yeah, I'm thankful for all the questions that we've had. This last one kind of leads into, you know, some of our next step conversation here. So, you know, if you are considering selling or implementing some technology as a manufacturer, you know, we're here to help. You know, here's my contact information. You'll get this in the slide presentation that's sent out. But, you know, we're not looking for people who are like, I have to sell today. I mean, obviously we'll help you if you come to us, but we'd love to talk to you ahead of time, because if we can look at opportunities to improve value, if you're a manufacturer, connect you with someone who can help you improve your technology, you know, those can make a big difference. So we want to talk to you earlier than later. And also our speakers, Corey and Adam, have both agreed to take any, you know, take emails and have conversations with you. So, you know, the question that just came up about the technology, and, you know, if you want someone to look at it specifically and give you some ideas on what can be done, you know, please reach out. If you want to kind of also collaborate on how can those technologies and improvements actually enhance the value of my company from a valuation perspective, we can collaborate together on that and help you answer that question to kind of, you know, do your ROI analysis and justify the investment. But I just wanted to let you know we are here to help if you would like to reach out. So I want to thank all of you for joining. I appreciate the time that you spent with us. And again, if we'll be sending out the recording of the webinar as well as the presentation, and we hope to hear from you. And thanks, Corey and Adam, too, for taking the time today to join our webinar and participate. Really appreciate that.
Definitely enjoyed it, Andy. Thanks for having us. And yeah, if anyone, like I said, is interested in looking to exit their business or wants more information, feel free to reach out. Happy to talk to them.
All right.
Same here.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Yeah.